Hello everyone, welcome back to ABM 41, the Introduction to Agribusiness Management. So in this session, we are already on the 8th chapter of this course, and we will be dealing about the agribusiness supply chain. So in this chapter, we have some set of objectives that we will try to achieve after you watch this video, after you study the learning material, and after you accomplish the activities that are included in this chapter. And these objectives are flashed on your screens. So let's talk about supply chain. So supply chain is the sequence of the organization in terms of their facilities, functions, and activities that are involved in the production and delivery of products and services. So if we talk about supply chain, it includes all the activities, all the processes that are involved in the production of the product, and those activities involved in the distribution of the product from the point of production up to the point of consumption. So basically, all the processes involved in the flow of the product from its conception up to its production, up to its distribution to the consumers, that is what we call as the supply chain. So from the term itself, supply chain, chain of activities. Meaning, what are the chain of activities involved in the distribution, in the production and distribution of the product from the point of production up to the point of consumption. So, so this is about the flow of the product. What are the activities that and processes that are being done in the production and the distribution of the product? That is the supply chain. So basically, if we think about supply chain, it involves different activities. It involves different processes that are not easy and somehow complicated. So, studying the flow of the product, the chain of activities on a particular commodity, it involves different processes like forecasting, it involves purchasing, it involves decision making about inventory management, keeping the right level of inventory, it involves about information management. So information is a very important element for a successful and effective supply chain. So that is another element that should be considered in the supply chain of a particular commodity. Another thing is quality assurance. As there is a movement of the product, as there is an added value to a particular product, quality assurance is another element that should be considered. Of course, our ultimate goal is to satisfy our customers. And we can do that somehow if we will provide them with products with high quality. Another thing that we have to consider about supply chain is scheduling. Scheduling of the supply that we need in our production, and supply of the products to the consumers. So proper scheduling so that we can avoid delay in the production, and proper scheduling of the distribution so that we can supply, there is a timely supply of the products to the consumers. That we have to we should be responsive, no, in supplying the demand of the consumers. So in supply chain, that is one thing that we need to consider, and one thing that we need to work out. There should be a proper scheduling so that we can deliver the products in time. Then another thing is production distribution. We also need to consider about delivery and, of course, customer service. So based on the elements that I've mentioned, we can understand that supply chain is very complicated. It involves a lot of decision making, and this decision that we need to make are very important. It could lead to the success or even failure of the organization, success or failure of the business. That's why, with the complications that are being brought by the supply chain, especially for commodities with a very long supply chain, there is a need for management. Okay, there is a need for management. We need to manage the supply chain to make sure that it is efficient, to make sure that it is effective. Sir, question. Why do we have to ensure that the supply chain should be effective and efficient? Hinaanin ni siya. If the supply chain is not effective or efficient, it will the cost of that particular product or commodity will be very high. The more participants that will be involved in the supply chain, the more processes or the more nga daghan pag-agian ang imuhang product before it can reach to the customer, cost will be added in every level of the chain. And as cost is added and as the chain becomes longer, who will suffer? It is the consumers. The consumers, the customers will suffer with the high prices of products and commodities. And we don't want that to happen. That's why in agribusiness, we need to incorporate, we need to integrate management in the supply chain of agribusiness products. So how? Muna to akong mga nanga-mention kaganina that we need to consider, we need to integrate forecasting, proper scheduling of purchases, of our purchases. We need to have proper inventory management. We need to improve the flow of information, the acquisition of information, and distribution of information, proper information management. We need also to ensure good quality of the products. We need to ensure timely delivery of goods, timely delivery of commodities, and proper customer service to our clienteles. So in such sense, we can improve the supply chain, we can incorporate management in the supply chain so that there will be an effective and efficient supply chain. Okay, now, supply chain and value chain are terminologies that are commonly used interchangeably. Maybe for some of you, these terminologies are familiar already. But maybe for some, it's the first time for them to encounter these concepts. So let's try to clarify the difference between supply chain and value chain. Value chain refers to the concept that additional value is added into the product as it goes along in the chain. Actually, these two terminologies are just similar, but there is just a thin line border between the two concepts. So for supply chain, this is the flow of the product. So asa ga hapit-hapit unsa mga activities involved that are being done, that are being conducted gikan sa pag-produce sa product up to the distribution until such time it can reach the final consumers. That is the supply chain. The sequence of activities involved in the production up to the distribution of the product from the point of production to the point of consumption. So kana ra siya ang supply chain. That is about tracing the sequence of activities. But if we talk about value chain, this includes the processes that adds value on a particular commodity along the supply chain. Okay, balik ko na ako. In value chain, these are the activities involved that adds value on the product or commodity along the supply chain. So basically, the value chain is within the supply chain. In the value chain, what we look into are the processes or the activities that adds value on a particular product or commodity. So basically, they are not mutually exclusive. There is something common between the two terminologies, that value chain is within the supply chain, and value chain focuses on adding value or the processes that adds value on a particular product or commodity within the supply chain. So I hope that the difference between the two terms are now clear. Okay. Agribusiness supply chains are forms of industrial organization which link a supplier to farmers, farmers to agribusinesses, and agribusinesses to markets. So if we are going to look into reality on the actual supply chain is about relationships. Relationship between farmers, from of suppliers to farmers, farmers to agribusinesses, and agribusinesses to markets. So this is about taking relationship between several stakeholders, a relationship between different sectors within the agribusiness. So they are formed, this supply chain are being formed by forming alliances, by forming or exercising cooperation between businesses, from a supplier to a farmer to a trader to agribusiness, to an agribusiness to another processor, from processor to the market. So if you can see, no, these are just connections, relationships of the different institutions within the agribusiness sector, wherein they cooperate and they form linkages. They form linkages to be able to carry out or produce a product, and to be able to carry out this product from their end up to the customers. So this is about bringing the product from the production point to the customers. So they do that by forming cooperation, by forming linkages, and by forming alliances and partnership. That is very important, the partnership. So partnership of this different institution to be able to bring the best product to the consumers. So that's how important supply chain management. So try to imagine, without management, this supply chain will be very topsy-turvy. This supply chain will be a great chaos. If there will be no cooperation, if there are no linkages that are being formed, if people within the if the people within the agribusiness sector are just keep on competing without proper coordination of the different activities, everything will be chaos. That's why it is very important to have supply chain management, because in supply chain, cooperation is very much needed rather than competition. And of course, within the supply chain, our goal here is for the success not only for a single institution, but for the success of all players, success of all participants within the supply chain. Okay, I hope that that concept is clear. So inyo lang bantayan, inyo lang dumduman that your relationship is very important. Bahalag wala mo ana, basta naa na siya sa agribusiness. Okay. Um, According to the United States Agency for International Development, value chain is the full range of activities that are required to bring a product or service from its conception to its end use. Oh, nagahin na akong dila, no? To its end use, including all the market channels available to all firms. So remember, full range of activities required to bring the product or service from its conception, meaning from the conception of the product to the end use, meaning all activities involved in the conception up to the delivery of the commodities of the product to the customers. Imagine there are a lot of activities that are being done, and if it will not be managed well, then it's not a win-win, it's a lose-lose situation. And we never wanted that to happen. Of course, We want to have a win-win situation. That's why supply chain management is very much important. Okay. So value chains are all about human interactions. Okay, these are all about human interaction, since it includes institutions, it includes people, it includes organization, and it includes partnership, alliance, and linkages. So try to imagine, how can we achieve good alliance? How can we achieve good partnership? Diba? That is through human interaction. We need to know our partners, we need to deal with them, and we need to be true to them. Nganong gabulag ang mga mag-uyab? Because na ay mga trust issues. One party nagbinuang, nagkagubot, nagkabulag. It's not a successful partnership, correct? So that is also true in agribusiness. If one institution, if one organization is magluib, mangita og lain, there will mag-dishonest, iyang lamangan ang iyang partner, then how can we expect for an effective supply chain? So human interaction, this is about human interaction, and it requires a a pure intention, it requires honesty, and it requires support system between organization for them to succeed, for them to push each other to succeed, no, so that all participants in the supply chain will succeed. Ingon ana. And in an effective value chain, people at different stages of the chain actively support each other, no. If we can notice, for some commodities wherein competition is much more important than partnership, mo na sila ang mga commodities nga most of the time mahal og presyo. Problematic nga mga nga mga nga mga uh, nga mga subsector within the agribusiness sector. Because if all participants will just cooperate and work hand in hand, then there will be a smooth flow of the chain of the product. So, mo na nga, participants need to support each other. Like sa inyo ha, as students, you, as classmates, you need to help each other. Di ang uban manggod kay tabangan lang katong naara po'y matabang sa ilaha. But the genuine help is helping your classmates without expecting for anything in return, no? So ang uban kay mahadlok magud ma-absent, no, ma-absent sa scores inganan, but remember dili ba ni high school nga isa ra ka cum laude. Everyone could be a cum laude, and remember that those small helps can make a big difference to the lives of your classmates, especially katong mga naglisod gyud. But remember, lahi ang concept sa help ug lahi pod ang concept sa pag-spoil. Help your classmate to improve themselves, not to depend, no, without any effort to for them to gain something. So that is also true in supply chain, that each participant should support each other. And on your screen, as you can see, no, this is a typical example of a supply chain. So if we can see here, we have here the input companies. For example, they are producing seeds, fertilizers, crop protection products, animal health and nutrition products. There are businesses which offers crop insurance and food ingredients. So input companies supply farmers, they also supply food companies and some other players in the supply chain. And of course, these input companies could not reach out immediately to the consumers, because consumers doesn't need all this. No, not all consumers are farmers. Remember that. So basically, input companies has direct contact to the farmers and food companies, since their job is to supply inputs on their production and the processes that they are conducting. So on the next level of the chain, we have here the farmers, which produce crops, which produce dairy products, which produce meat. And this farmers connects to the traders. They sell products to the traders, they sell products to the retailers, and there are also farmers which market their product directly to the consumer. So that is already chain, diba? The chain of the connection of farmers to the traders to food companies. Farmers also supply to food companies, retailers, and consumers. So we can see that there should be a proper coordination of the flow of the product, because if there will be no management of the supply chain, it could be that traders iyang hakop-hakopon ang tanan kang farmers para manipulate niya ang product, and then magkagubot iya rin presyohan mo, mahal ang palit ni food companies, so pagbaligya niya kang retailers mahal, so kay mahal man ang angkat ni retailers, mahal ang pagbaligya kang consumer. So it will be a very problematic scenario if 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 there will be if there will be no proper coordination within the supply chain. So after the farmer, the next in chain is we have the traders, wherein they trade the products that they got from the farmers. They sell it to the food companies, they sell it to the retailers, and maybe at some particular commodities they sell to directly to consumers, but that is very rare since traders doesn't deal directly with consumers. Then we have the food companies, which deals with the retailers, and this they can also deal with consumers, and retailers deal with consumers. Actually, this presentation is just a very simple and a very basic example of a supply chain. But if we're going to conduct studies, no, there are studies on the actual scenario, actual situation of the different commodities, especially here in Bukidnon. Hindi siya ingon ani ka simple. It will give you a very complicated figure, no, of the different connections, different directions of arrows of the supply chain. And such complicated scenario requires proper management. Okay. Uh, this another figure is another example of a supply chain map. This supply chain map this is a result of the study of the faculty members of the Department of Agribusiness Management in the year 2014. This is a result of the study of Dr. Hazel Sullivan and Professor Sheila Puunon in the year 2014. In that year, they study the supply chain of mud crab in northern Mindanao. And the concentration of mud crab, I don't know if you are familiar with mud crab, they are rampant, or they are basically produced somewhere in Lanao del Norte, somewhere in Misamis Occidental. So they went there, they studied the supply chain of the mud crab, and after their study, they were able to come up with this particular supply chain map. So if you can see, mud crab catchers, this is from Misamis Occidental, they send their product to local assemblers. So from dito na catch ang mga mud crabs, and then they sell it, they deliver it to the local assemblers. And then this local assemblers, meaning they from a farmer 1 ilang gipalit, farmer 2 ilang gipalit, ilang giassemble. And then this local assembler sell those mud crabs to the different institutions. They sell it to retailers. They sell it to local assemblers from other province. For example, in Lanao del Norte, they sell to institutional buyers like restaurants and some other institutions. They also sell products for walk-in buyers, especially for direct consumers. And some of their products are being sold also to mud crab fattener, those who also culture mud crab. And these retailers sell directly their products to the household, and this local assemblers in Lanao del Norte, uh, they sell it to consumers in Lanao del Norte. So this, if we can see, no, if we're going to analyze the supply chain, this supply chain is not that complicated, no. uh, Especially if you're going to study the reach, this is just within uh, Misamis